Hi, and welcome to another episode of pianoTV. So today we are going to climb aboard the Christmas music train and learn another Christmas song. So last time we did Away in a Manger, which I'll link to on the screen if you missed that. And that's like a nice mellow song, but I wanted to go in the opposite direction today, do like a really upbeat song. So we are going to do Deck the Halls. And just like with Away in a Manger, there's going to be two versions of the sheet music. There's going to be a simpler version with just chords and the right hand notes, and then a fully arranged version. So we'll look at both and kind of figure out how to interpret them and etc. In theory, Deck the Halls is a really simple Christmas song because it's a repetitive melody with a few easy chords that are really consistent overall. So the difficulty of this song doesn't lie in the notes or the chords, but it more lies in the tempo because it's a fast song. So you'll need to start from a really slow speed and gradually build up to that speedy tempo that is so essential to this Christmas piece. So what I would suggest is work on the chords separate to practice those fast switches. Ooh, that is quite loud. This is how I play the chords. So I just play D major in its root position, and then I invert the notes of A7 chord closer to the notes of D chord so I can switch back and forth between them quickly without having to, jump across the keyboard to get to that A7 chord. So I do that with all of the chords in the song. I try to invert them so they're as close together and easy to move to as possible. Then after, getting comfortable with the chords and being able to make those fast switches between them all, I do the same thing with the right hand. So work through it by itself to make sure you're noting all the finger changes in movement. There's a few spots like right here where you have to cross over, and in the middle when you're doing the fa la 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 part, you have to move your hands a lot too. So get the hang of that, and that will make putting both hands together way easier. Here's the simplified chord and treble clef version I was just playing. So I like learning songs from sheets like this because you can just kind of let your imagination and creativity take the lead. So you could play the left hand here, which is represented by these chords. You could do it basically any way you want, whether that's just doing a simple held chord or maybe playing broken chords or a variation of just kind of like a bottom top pattern or Alberti bass pattern or whatever you decide to do. Or if you're into singing, you might even choose to sing the melody instead of play it, and then play the bass notes in the left hand with fleshed out chords in the right hand. So I like these arrangements because you just get to choose your own adventure. Here's the fully arranged and amped up version of Deck the Halls now. So it still uses chords here. They're like basically just at the cadences, but otherwise the left hand is just this single note pattern. This ties into the previous video on Baroque keyboard style. So this version of Deck the Halls I did write in that sort of Baroque keyboard style with a relatively independent left and right hand. So definitely I'll link to it on the screen, but check out that video on Baroque keyboard style if you haven't already, because it'll give a little bit more context to the way this is arranged. So let's go to the keyboard and check out what it sounds like. All right, now let's look at a couple technicalities of this arrangement. So first of all, we got that Italian allegro, which means to play fast, which you probably already knew Deck the Halls was a fast song, even without me telling you that, or the allegro telling you that. So next up, we have the key signature. So two sharps is telling us one of two things. Basically, it's either going to be based on the key of D major, or it's relative minor B minor. So just think about, this song's probably fresh in your head now after just listening to the version of it. So think in your head, does this song sound like relatively major and happy, or does it sound more like dark and minor? Hopefully you answered that it sounds major and happy. This is a very upbeat song, so it's probably in D major. We can confirm that just by looking at the first note. Yep, there's a D. It basically every single line ends in a D major chord. So that is your biggest clue, just the overwhelming amount of Ds and D major sort of chords. All right, so let's look at the chords from the first version with just the simple chords in the treble clef right hand. So in particular, I want to look at this A7 chord. If you remember from the previous video on seventh chords, basically what this means is that we're playing an A major chord, which is going to be A, C sharp, E, or 1, 3, 5 of A major scale. And then we're going to add the 7th to it, which in this case is a G. Now, in A major scale, there is a G sharp, but in a 7 chord, you play the 7th note just lowered. So instead of a G sharp, it's just going to be a regular old G. So the formula for a 7 chord is 1, 3, 5, and then a lowered 7. So A, C sharp, E, G is our A7 major chord. If this is freaking you out and you don't know what I'm talking about, definitely, I'll link to it on the screen as well, but definitely check out that video on 7th chords because it should help make sense of all this. Now, when I play this arrangement with chords, I like to simplify them a bit so you're not jumping from like a D as the low note to an A as the low note, and you're like, then you have like a, I'm moving my hand, you can't see it, but then you have a 5-note jump, and that's kind of tough. So what I do is I take these notes, the A, C sharp, E, G, and I rearrange them. So I put C sharp on the bottom, because C sharp and D are neighbors, they're really close. And then E, I'm going to put on in brackets, I'll tell you why in just a second, and then G and A. So these are rearranged to be the shortest possible movement from D major chord, which is D, F sharp, oh, got to get the F in there. D, F sharp, A. You're going to have to use your imagination with that sharp. And the reason I put this E in brackets is because if you remember from, again, that video on 7s, check it out. The 5th note of a chord, like any 7 chord, is usually the weakest or least important. So sometimes to simplify a 7th chord, I'll just get rid of that 5th note entirely and just play 3 notes because it just makes it a lot easier and faster to switch back and forth. And that's all there is to it. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. As always, the sheet music can be found linked below on my website, pianotv.net. And if you have any questions or comments, as always, feel free to send a message in the message area. Thanks, and have a good one.